wherever you may be listening. We are live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. I hope you're having a great day today, my favorite time of the year. We got stories breaking left and right. We may have a Jet story breaking here. We had a story yesterday broke at the end of our show. Arizona hired Kliff Kingsbury. Vic Fangio is going to get hired by Denver. Is that official yet? When the story breaks, we'll be on it. I think they're going to hire Vic Fangio in Denver, the old guy I like. Bruce Arians just got hired yesterday. By the way, Cleveland today. We can put a breaking news bar on this, baby. Peter King in 15 minutes. Freddie Kitchens got hired. Very little experience. Has been a coordinator 8 games in his career. Okay, so first of all, I am not a believer in hiring from within. Now, I'm not saying there aren't instances where I wouldn't do it. I'm not a big believer. I think it's a laziness in the vetting process. I think Cleveland is attributing their success now to Freddie Kitchens. No, their success is John Dorsey got him a bunch of good players. Baker Mayfield's a pretty talented kid. And, you know, they played some beatable teams in the last couple of months. They're attributing their success. When you haven't had much success in life, Freddie Kitchens is winning. Give him the job. I don't like doing it. In college football, it's classic. There's 100 guys, 100 universities in college football that give the coaching job to the very popular assistant. Once the legend leaves, they almost all die. I mean, it's just the way it works. Larry Coker in Miami to you. Randy Shannon for you in Miami. Yeah. I grew up my childhood, saw it 9 times in all the schools around where I'm at.
But he wasn't doing the winning. He wasn't the head coach.
So here's the thing. Companies too often hire from within. And ask yourself this statistically. What are the chances that the best candidate for your job in the world are in your building already? The chances of that are less than half of 1%. And I also think the great talent in coaching, in tech, in media, in finance, in teaching, in landscaping, in any business are mobile. They're willing to move. If I see somebody that's been in a supporting role for 27 years and been okay with being at one organization for 38 years, I'm out. You're not aspirational enough. You're not confident enough. You're not driven enough. Steve Spurrier wasn't going to be an assistant for anybody. Spurrier's like, get me out of here. I'm going to go to Duke. I'm going to go to Florida. I'm going to go to South Carolina. Nick Saban wasn't going to be anybody's assistant. I'm going to Michigan State. I'm going to LSU. I'm going to Miami. I'm going to Alabama. The great ones don't take supporting roles for 30 years. So now Freddie Kitchens obviously younger than that. But I think this is laziness, and I think Cleveland has low self-esteem, so they had a little success, and they're attributing their success to Freddie Kitchens. Here's what's remarkable, though. Just to prove my point, the Big Lead, go to thebiglead.com. They have a great story on this today. The last 10 teams who have promoted from within to their head coach, 0 for 10. None have been re-signed. Most get fired within 2 years to 3 years. 0 for 10. And if you go look at the last 20 that have done it, it's mostly only one guy has ever gotten a second contract. Some guys go to 4 years, but it's a disaster.
That is some list.
It is a disaster. The best candidate for any job is almost always statistically not already in the building. Not in the building. If Sean McVay leaves tomorrow, the best candidate's not in the building. You got to go find the best candidate. I mean, New England went out and found Belichick, and Alabama went and found Saban. They didn't hire somebody. USC went and found Pete Carroll, and then Pete left, and they want to hire a bunch of people that were already in the building. So I'm not a fan of that. I don't think Freddie Kitchens is the most qualified guy. Mike McCarthy's out there. Bruce Arians out there. These guys have been to Super Bowls. These guys are winning coaches. So good luck to the kid. I mean, he looks like Mike McCarthy, so, you know.
Well, I think if you're a good coach or a good leader, you tend to put people around you who complement you, who fill things that you don't have or that you aren't as good as. So when you leave, the idea that you're going to promote from within and replace this great coach or good leader with someone that they've just brought in to complement them, it makes sense why they wouldn't be successful. They're not duplicates. Good leaders put people around you that they can delegate to.
Right.
So they're not going to fill that spot.
Okay, so I want to talk about something. So there's a real thing happening in the NFL, and it's almost kind of comical, is that a lot of people on the internet and Twitter, and they've been making fun of this. that if you basically had a beer in the last 3 years with Sean McVay, you're getting a job. Because Sean McVay, it's a copycat league, is this hot young coach, and he is very smart. I mean, you stand around him for 5 minutes, you're like, he's quick. I mean, there's no getting around it. But I don't believe he'll ever have a great coaching tree, and I'll explain it in a second, much like Bill Belichick's never had a great coaching tree. That even Sean McVay yesterday laughed when people talked about his coaching tree. Here's Sean McVay, coach of the Rams.
I'm too young to have a coaching tree. I think it would be naive to think that any of this is about one person. That certainly isn't the case at all. And I think if the last 2 years have taught me anything being in this role, it's about you better surround yourself with a lot of people that are better than you so that you can learn every day. It's flattering, though, for our organization.
So Sean McVay's smart enough to know it's a bunch of hooey. Everybody else in the league, like the Browns and Arizona and all these other teams, Green Bay, they're not smart enough to figure out what Sean McVay knows. It's a bunch of hooey. Now, Andy Reid has a real coaching tree. I mean, he's got John Harbaugh, Ron Rivera, Doug Peterson, Matt Nagy, Todd Bowles, Frank Reich. Here's a picture of Andy Reid's coaching tree. It is lush. It is supple. It's a real tree. It's got branches. It's got leaves. It is a massive coaching tree. To this point, Sean McVay's coaching tree, frankly, looks more like a weed. Let's slow down on the coaching tree. And I have a theory on something. I'm not saying I'm right. But I'm saying part of my job is not just to react to what happened yesterday. I wrote a book about this. Part of my job is to predict what's going to happen tomorrow. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make a prediction on this. I don't think Sean McVay or Bill Belichick will ever have great coaching trees because they have two things in their life that make them borderline savants. If you look at Steve Jobs, the late, great Steve Jobs, or Bill Gates, or Wayne Gretzky, if you look at what I would call people that are almost savant level, there are two things that they have, and they're not transferable. They have unique childhood advantages. You can't duplicate those. Bill Gates snuck into, I think it was Lakeside High School. There was one computer at his school. His dad had a key. Bill Gates at night for a year would be on a computer. He had a huge, unique childhood advantage. Okay, the reason that Bill Parcells and I don't think Sean McVay will ever have great coaching trees is because their two skills are not transferable. Unique childhood advantages and IQ. Now, it's not to say Andy Reid and Bill Parcells and Mike Holmgren, who have very lush coaching trees, aren't really smart. But Bill Belichick's father essentially invented modern scouting. No, I'm not joking. His mother spoke 7 languages. She was a language professor. Bill grew up in a uniquely intellectual academic home. His dad invented modern scouting. Bill fell in love with coaching at 9, and his mother spoke 7 languages. It was a unique academic, football-driven environment. You can't duplicate that. Andy Reid didn't get that. Mike Holmgren didn't get that. And because of that, Bill's IQ is not transferable. IQ is not transferable. Okay, unless dad, son, but not like coach and friend of a coach. Sean McVay, similarly, Sean had a unique childhood advantage. His grandfather was the vice president of the 49ers during their dynasty. He hung around the offices when he was a little boy. He was a teenager. His father was a football player. And by the way, on John Gruden's Bucks, Sean McVay was an NFL assistant at 22 years old. You can't duplicate that. So Bill Belichick's not a great teacher, nor is he a great mentor. He is a football savant. You cannot transfer Bill Gates' unique childhood or intellect. You cannot transfer Steve Jobs. There are certain advantages. This is why in society it's important to give people breaks. It's important to give people who don't come from legacies and great money and opportunity, because the people who really rise in this society, Michael Jackson, the late, great Michael Jackson, grew up Motown. You don't think it helped? The music city of North America? And so I don't think Belichick has much of a coaching tree, and I don't think Sean McVay ever will. I don't think their skills are transferable. And that is not a shot at all. I love McVay, and you know what I think of Belichick. But Joy and I have talked about this. It is not a coincidence that Andy Reid, a teacher, Holmgren, a teacher, Walsh, a teacher, a mentor, didn't have those childhood advantages. Not to say they had bad childhoods, but their dad didn't invent scouting. They weren't an assistant coach at 20.
Well, also when you're obsessed with something, you don't tend to share it because your entire focus is on making yourself better, which isn't a bad thing.
No.
It's just that's just somehow how some people are wired, and there's multiple ways to do things. How Andy Reid does it is not worse than the way that Bill Belichick does it. There's just different ways to do it. And Sean McVay just said it right there. He said you better surround yourself with people that know more than you or know different things than you. He just said it right there. You put people around you that compliment you.
Good stuff. Peter King's around the corner. We got breaking story. I love this time of the year. Bruce Arians, it's in. Tampa, love the hire. Vic Fangio, close in Denver, like the hire, bringing Gary Kubiak with him. Kliff Kingsbury, Matt LaFleur, I got my doubts. Freddie Kitchens, last 10 coaches hired within 0 for 10 have not gotten a second contract. Peter King next. Small steps lead to big changes. It's important to think about that entering a new year, and it's important to remember that LegalZoom can help